Hey guys, Charles here, AP Macro 2024 free response. This is set 2 and this is number 3. Let's see if we can work our way through this. Assume that Jamaica has a cyclical unemployment rate of 4% and a balanced capital and financial account. Identify a specific fiscal policy action that the government would take to bring its economy back to full employment. So recognize anytime we have cyclical unemployment, we know that we are in a recession. If they asked us to draw a graph, we should just long run aggregate supply vertical, short run aggregate supply upward sloping, aggregate demand to downward sloping, but to the left of your long run aggregate supply. That's full employment right there. This is us in a recession. Let's call it Y1. Let's call that PL1. This is price level on the vertical, real GDP on the horizontal. This is us drawing our aggregate demand and aggregate supply curve graph showing our recession. Easy enough. All right. Based solely on the short run change, what would be our fiscal policy action to get us out of a recession? Government spending could go up or taxes could go down. Those are technically the two things for fiscal policy that we tend to want to use. Government spending going up or taxes going down. And let's follow our chain of thinking because we're going to answer this in just a second. What happens when government spending goes up or taxes go down? Well, government spending is pretty straightforward. The government spends $1 billion. All of that money rushes out into the economy and consumption goes up. All that money becomes income for other people. They start spending more money too. Taxes, one step away. People cut their tax, or the government cuts taxes. People have more disposable income. They're going to take that disposable income and they're going to start spending it. So consumption goes up for both of these. That's going to drive aggregate demand up, which drives the price level up. And we can see that when aggregate demand increases, it shifts to the right and it drives us back to full employment. And that's what fiscal policy is trying to do. They're trying to push aggregate demand back to full employment. Price level would go up, real GDP and output, both are the same thing, would go up and unemployment would go down. That's why this is called expansionary fiscal policy. It's trying to push us back to full employment. Expansionary fiscal policy, easy enough. And it is always what the government could do. Cool. So government spending there would have been our answer. What will happen based solely on the short run changes in real output resulting from the fiscal policy action identified in Part A? What will happen to their exports? Well, I think what we want to recognize here that if real GDP starts kicking up, that's also going to kick up the price level. Price level goes up. Now all of Jamaicans' goods are more expensive due to that higher price level. So if their goods are more expensive, people aren't going to be buying as much of their stuff. That implies that their net exports, and we should make sure we recognize that net exports is exports minus imports, right? So we recognize that if things are more expensive in Jamaica due to that higher price level, exports are going to go down. People aren't going to buy as much of their stuff. So we know that net exports, if exports goes down, net exports is going to have to go down also. Easy enough. And I would just use this whole sort of understanding. I started with real GDP because that's where they want you to start. As real GDP and output goes up, that's going to drive up the price level. That makes all goods and services in Jamaica more expensive. As goods and services are more expensive relative to other countries are going to buy less Jamaican goods. Therefore, Jamaican exports go down, net exports go down. That's a little wordy, but I would want to have all of that in there to make sure that I'm giving them everything they need so that I get all the points. Cool. Let's look at C. Assume that Jamaica and Turkey are trading partners with a flexible exchange rate. Jamaican currency is the Jamaican dollar, JMD. Currency is the lira, TRY. Draw a correctly labeled graph of the foreign exchange market for the Jamaican dollar. Show the effect of the change in net exports on the supply. Now, almost 90%, 95% of the time, when they give you a foreign exchange graph, you're going to choose whether you talk about supply or demand. It's how you draw it, and they're going to let you choose. This time they were specific. They want to know exactly what happens to supply. And I am going to do that, but I'm kind of a demand guy on this. Let's talk about it for just a second, and then we're going to make sense of how we need to draw our graph for supply. So we're drawing for Jamaican dollars, so we're just going to do a supply of currencies, demand for currencies. This is the Jamaican dollar, JMD, and this is to the lira. So if you're drawing for the Jamaican dollar, it would be Jamaican dollar on the vertical and quantity of Jamaican dollar on the horizontal. And then it is lira to Jamaican dollars. Now, what I know is Jamaican goods are more expensive. So foreigners, anybody other than Jamaica, are not going to want to buy their stuff. If they're not buying their stuff, they don't need to buy their dollar. So the demand for the Jamaican dollar would go down. Now, if the College Board had just asked me to draw a graph, this one makes a lot more sense to me. So I would have grabbed this one first, right? We're going to do E1 to E2 here. That's exchange rate 1, exchange rate 2. Show some arrows, and we're golden. That's our graph correctly labeled, but it's showing the demand. You and I need to show the supply. And this should make sense to us. Usually, either one of these would have been a correct graph. But since they want specifically supply, we need to be obviously specifically supply. So dollar, and then the lira over here. So recognize I could do two things. I could just recognize that if there's less demand for the Jamaican dollar, that has to imply that there's going to be more supply of the Jamaican dollar inside the foreign exchange. If people want it less, they're not buying it as much, so the supply of it is increasing because the demand for the Jamaican dollar is going down. Easy enough. If people aren't buying it, supply is increasing, or there's more of it in there than if people were taking it out. If that makes sense, that's a lot of words. But we have to know that both of these are technically the same thing. Let's do that. Q1, Q2, show some arrows. If the demand's going down, that implies the supply is going up. Obviously, if the demand was going up, that would imply there's less of it in there because people are buying it out of that. These are both usually, either one of them, perfectly acceptable on this kind of question, but they were specific this time, so this is the only one I would have drawn. I might have drawn this and then put my fingers through it, if that makes sense, so that they can only see this one. Notice that what's going on is that the exchange rate is going down, right? That it takes less. Either we could say that the currency, Jamaican dollar, is depreciating here, or we could say it takes less lira to buy one Jamaican dollar. Both of those are the same thing, and they're both saying the same thing. It just depends on which way you feel more comfortable saying that. That was a lot of words too. This one's, maybe I'm just wordy today. Anyway, D, how will the change in net exports affect Jamaica's capital and financial accounts? So, first of all, again, exports, net exports is exports minus imports. And I would have wanted to make sure that they know that I know that, right? I recognize, and we've already said, that exports are going to go down in B. Well, if exports are going down, what we know about our current account is that if exports are going down, that implies net exports are going down. This is going to push our current account toward a deficit. Now, if our current account is moving toward a deficit, that means our capital account or our financial account are moving toward a surplus. We recognize that if this is a -2, this has to be a +2. We understand that your current account plus your financial account always have to equal 0. So the recognition is that if your current account is moving toward a deficit, your capital and financial account, same thing now, must be moving toward a surplus. That would be my explanation. They might want a little bit more for this, so we'll come back to this. I don't know what else they could want. I mean, that's about as tight as we can make it. We could add more stuff in, but I like that very tight understanding there. All right, we're going to leave it alone. Let that be enough. All right, be safe, take care, and see you soon.